Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Terence Blanchard headlines the Frederick Jazz Festival at the Weinberg Center in Frederick, Maryland on Saturday night. I spoke to the 5-time Grammy winner about his prolific collaboration with Spike Lee, from Do the Right Thing to Malcom X to his 2 Oscar nominations for BlackKklansman and To Five Bloods. Terence Blanchard, hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
I'm sure you've come, to the DC area, maybe Baltimore or something, but have you ever been to Frederick? I mean, this is my hometown. We don't usually get artists of your stature here at the Weinberg Center. We're excited. Have you ever been up here?
No, I've never been to Frederick, Maryland, but my wife is from Washington, D.C., so I'm in the area a lot.
Well, we're looking forward to having you. I can give you a whole list of restaurants and stuff if you if you need to. But,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're really excited. Well, what can, if our folks turn out to the Weinberg Center, what sort of can we expect? Obviously, it's the Jazz Fest, so lots of good jazz. But anything in particular, that for sure is going to be on the set list here?
Yeah, we're going to be doing the music for our latest album on Blue Note. It's called Absence, and it's the music. It's combined. It's the music of Wayne Shorter combined with original material in tribute to Wayne Shorter. Right. And it's also, I forgot the most important component. We're also joined by the Turtle Island String Quartet, which has been it's been a joy to play with these guys every night.
Well, that's going to be exciting. That's really, really cool. Everybody has to come check that out. So all right. So and then in addition to that new album in Frederick, aren't you also this coming season at the Metropolitan Opera in New York? They're going to stage Fire Shut Up in My Bones, your opera. It'll be sometime this opera season, 2021, 2022.
Right.
I know it's notable. I mean, it's the first time that they've ever had an African-American composer do an opera there. How exciting is that?
No, it's incredibly exciting. And we just had the final show on Saturday, but they taped it with an HD broadcast, and they're going to rebroadcast it in theaters around the country. On Saturday, they did a live simulcast in 70 countries around the world.
Wow. And then how big of an honor is it how big of an honor, but also the fact that it took this long for an African-American composer too. That's kind of bittersweet to me,
Yeah, it is. It's filled with mixed emotions, obviously. I mean, it's a huge honor. You would be crazy not to think so. But at the same time, I thought about William Grant Still and some other great composers who never got the shot. And as a matter of fact, they brought me a ledger from the Met that's part of their history dating back to 1919, where William Grant Still's, and it's a ledger of all of the operas that were rejected. And it's you can see William Grant Still's name in there 3 times, once in 1920, once in 1935, and then again in 1939. And that was a little disheartening and broke my heart and hurt my feelings. But, hopefully we're trying to right the ship now and move forward.
Yeah, it's a historic achievement. So congratulations, sir. That's amazing.
You.
Well, whenever I have someone of your stature on, I love to hear sort of your journey. So I know we'll remind everyone you were born in New Orleans back in 62. What sort of stuff did you grow up listening to? I assume all the great New Orleans jazz. And weren't you childhood friends with Wynton Marsalis, Branford Marsalis?
Oh, yeah. Well, we grew up together. I've been knowing those guys since we were in elementary school. Harry Connick, there was a bunch of guys, Leroy Jones. There's a bunch of great musicians from that area that we all grew up together, inspiring each other, but we listened to all different types of music. While we grew up listening to jazz, man, look, I was listening to Parliament, Funkadelics, Jimi Hendrix, all different types of music, even classical music, and it's one of the things that the opera allowed me to do is to bring a lot of those elements into telling that story. So I feel very fortunate growing up in the time that I grew up, because that time it wasn't about trying to do one thing. It was about trying to enjoy all different types of music.
For sure. So that's sort of, growing up and getting exposed to it. When did you start deciding I'm going to pursue this seriously as a career? And, I guess, was it when you went to Rutgers to study it, or, when was that sort of, aha moment that I can actually make a living at this?
I'm still trying to figure that out, dude. No, I mean, it became serious for me when I was a kid. I wanted to play football, and I played on the little league teams, and I was pretty good at it until.
Oh, what position were you?
I played tackle and linebacker.
Nice.
So, it was interesting until I played for the Bayou Classic with Grambling versus Southern, and I saw those big old dudes get off the bus. I'm like, nah, don't think this is for me. So around that time, music really became like a serious thing. So that was probably when I was about 15, 16 years old.
Gotcha. And then obviously those who have followed your career, you started touring with the Lionel Hampton Orchestra or Blakely's Jazz Messengers. And then of course, and then you spun off and started doing your own thing, Terence Blanchard and Donald Harrison Quintet. How exciting was it when you finally got signed there, and said, wow, I can actually start making some legit recordings here?
Well, it was incredibly exciting. I mean, especially at that time when we got signed by Columbia Records, because that was one of the pinnacles of the record recording industry. Everybody wanted to be on that label. And Dr. George Butler was a guy that had confidence in us and put a lot of support behind us. We did great making records and touring and had large budgets to do the projects. It was an incredibly exciting time, but we didn't understand at the time, how different it would be. We were just trying to make records that could communicate to an audience.
For sure. Well, you did. You communicated. 5 Grammys later or whatever. You definitely communicated. Well, I want to know. I'm a huge movie guy, and I know a lot of our listeners will, of course, know you for your collaborations with Spike Lee. How did you meet Spike? What's that story? We need to know that story.
What's funny about that, man? We were talking about that the other day because we had the rap party for the opera, and Spike came and we were hanging out, and I was telling people, I said, man, when I was a Lakers fan. And I remember the Lakers had just beat Boston, for the championship. And I got hired to do this recording session with this film. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And when I walk in, Spike is standing at the door. And I had on my Lakers hat. I had on a T-shirt, had on my purple and gold Converse. And he looks at me and goes, oh, you're a Lakers fan? I said, yeah, buddy, what about it? Then next thing I know, man, he was taking me to Knicks games. And I was sitting at the courtside, yelling, take him, Pat. But it was a cool period because we were all just young, trying to find our way in the world of art, and he remembered me from that moment. So I started working with him from that moment on. Whether I was just either the first couple of films, I was just a session player, but then on Mo Better Blues, everything turned around and I became a composer for him.
Were those the Patrick Ewing Knicks that he took you to, or what era is that?
Oh, of course, man. Patrick Ewing Knicks, the Bird, Celtics. You know what I mean? The Magic, Lakers, that was and then right at the tail end of that period was the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls. So I got a chance to see a lot of those guys up close, man. And when you see them on TV, that's one thing. But when you see them up close and realize how big they are and the way that they're moving, it's an incredible thing to witness.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess you and Spike, you'll always have Pat Riley in common, right? He coached both, right? He coached the Lakers and the Knicks. All right. Well, yeah. I want to talk some of the Spike stuff. So, obviously you mentioned Mo Better Blues and everything, but even before that, was Do the Right Thing the very first one you worked on?
I think it was Do the Right Thing in School Days. I can't remember which one came first.
Okay.
But one of those, yeah.
Yeah. Did you know at the time that Do the Right Thing was going to become such? I mean, it is a touchstone. However many years, what was in 1989? But man, I mean, that is like one of the most iconic movies of all time, and your music is in there. Well, along with Public Enemy with Fight the Power, but your music is in there for Frozen in Time. That's
well, but here's the thing: I didn't write anything for Do the Right Thing, but I played on it. His father wrote all of that music. Okay. We didn't know that it was going to go down in history. We just knew it was a good movie, And the thing you got to remember back then, when we were making those movies, everybody was trying to get the film companies to understand how to market those films, because we felt like there was an underserved community, But now, when you look at it now, I'm glad to see that the movie has withstood the test of time and is doing so well, because Spike has always been committed to making great movies, man, as you can tell throughout his career.
Oh, absolutely. And I know you did Jungle Fever after that, but a bunch of others. But I gotta ask about working on Malcom X again. Another one. I mean, did you get to be on set at all and see Denzel? I mean, Denzel basically. Spike said before he thought that the ghost of Malcom X was almost possessing Denzel in a couple of those scenes. It's incredible.
Oh no, man. Yeah, no, I was on set. As a matter of fact, I'm in the movie. There's one scene where he runs out of a club and Billie Holiday is up on stage playing, and I'm the trumpet player in the Billie Holiday band in the scene. But I remember we had just finished doing Mo Better Blues not too long before that, And Denzel called me just to have a conversation. I forgot what we were talking about, but he started talking to me about doing Malcolm X. And then he went into doing the opening speech over the phone. And bro, it was eerie, you know? It was like he turned into Malcolm. And when we were on set, you know, the days that I was there, he was extremely focused, man. Because I'd been on set with him doing Mo Better Blues, but watching him on the set of Malcolm X was something totally different.
Oh yeah, well we'd be here all day if I'll rattle them off. Clocker, Summer of Sam, 25th Hour, Inside Man, great movie. The Katrina documentary when the levees broke. I mean, so many good ones. But more recently, sir, the one I'm telling you, few movies you see and the score just loops in your head. It's stuck. But BlackKklansman, you got Oscar
Oh
nominated.
wow.
I'm
Yes,
telling you,
yes.
I can sit here right now and still, I mean, man, to that slow mo. How'd you come up with that score? Any good stories of creating that? That thing is epic.
Well, listen, man, that's the era from which I grew up in, you know. So immediately when I started thinking about that era and I saw that first scene with John David Washington in front with the afro, the leather jacket, and the bell-bottom pants, man, that my mind literally went to Jimi Hendrix, you know, and I started thinking about, you know, what that would be like. And then as soon as I'm thinking about that, Spike calls me up and Spike goes, yo, man, I think we should have like an R&B band with an orchestra for this score. And I went, oh, okay. I said I was thinking along the same lines. And then when I presented him the idea about like a Jimi Hendrix type of sound, he was all for it. You know, so Charles Artura, who's the guitarist that you'll hear in Frederick, he's the guy that's actually playing on that score. And like, you know, I told him, I said, look, bro, I don't want you to mimic Jimmy. It's not about mimicking Jimmy, but it's like playing in the spirit of Jimmy. And that's where we try to come up with our own sound, but influenced by his music.
Wow. So you'll hear the actual guitarist. His name is Charles Artur.
Altura.
Auteur. Okay, so Spike will be the auteur. He'll be the auteur. um, awesome. Well, and then I got to ask one more then about your second Academy Award. It's amazing that it took that long, like we said, but the Five Bloods, you get nominated again. Man, just talk about watching that and you're composing scores for footage of Chadwick Boseman, who no one knew was sick at the time. But
right.
Man, that scene is basically him like an angel saying, him saying goodbye,
Yeah, well, that was the interesting thing about it. Nobody knew he was sick, and I had talked to Clark Peters, and I talked to Spike. I even talked to Delroy Lindo about it. I said, man, did anybody know? And everybody to a man, they said no. He didn't say anything. And then Spike told me they would do those scenes and that first battle running through the woods. He said Chadwick will be the first one. He said, all right, let's do it again. Let's do it again. There was no indication of him being ill. And at the same time, he kept it to himself. He was having treatments, man. So it's a testament to that brother's will and strength of spirit, man. It should be a lesson for us all about doing things and figuring out what's most important for us, and not to be so consumed with our own situations, but to do what's best for the collective good.
Oh, absolutely. And if anyone could have been concerned about his personal experience, it was him
exactly.
going through those treatments. And yet he had that eye on the prize and sort of knew the legacy he was going to leave. It was unbelievable. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Something completely different. One more movie I wanted to ask you about. Something completely different. Disney hired you to do Princess and the Frog. A lot of young listeners, maybe young listeners before they're ready for the Spike Lee stuff, maybe they've seen you in that. But you actually voiced some characters too, right?
I voiced one character, and it's an off-screen character. There was one scene where the alligator's playing the trumpet, and they needed somebody to respond and said, look at that alligator playing the trumpet. And man, my son was there during the session, and my son gets the giggles rather quickly. And as soon as he heard me say, because they wanted me to scream, so I screamed out real loud, look at that gator playing the trumpet. Man, he lost it. He lost it for about 15 minutes. But it was a lot of fun working on it because it was a love letter to New Orleans, and when we finally saw the finished product, we were just amazed by it. And man, for about 2 months, man, I was like a serious heartthrob for girls under 12. A friend of mine, she's a judge. She had me go speak at one of her programs for young kids. and it was mostly young girls. And when she introduced me, they were just standing around and sitting there. They wasn't paying attention. But as soon as they said, "This is the guy who's the sound of the trumpet from Princess and the Frog," oh my God, I had their attention for the rest of the day.
They said, "Oh my gosh, that's the alligator." I said, "Well,
Exactly.
that's a different gator than Jungle Fever."
Exactly.
Well, cool, very cool. Well, speaking of sort of that, you're talking about the younger generation. Tell me about sort of the importance of giving back. I know because you were for a while you were the artistic director at Thelonious Monk Institute of Jazz. You did stuff at University of Miami, Berklee College of Music, and now I think you're at UCLA, right? So, you know, just the importance of taking those sort of academic positions and being able to give back.
It's extremely important. I mean, you know, that's how I became who I am. You know, somebody reached back and gave me a helping hand. Clark Terry, Milt Hinton, Alice Marcellus, all of those musicians, man, and all of my teachers. Roger Dickinson, who was my composition teacher, who studied in Vienna, could have had a career of his own, but came back to New Orleans to teach, you know. So I'm a firm believer in paying it forward, you know, and in doing so, we're educating. Because here's the thing, you know, I started looking around and started to realize those guys weren't around to teach anymore. So you have to think, who's going to do it? So that's the moment in time where you have to take responsibility and step up and just take on a task. And the thing about it, it's extremely rewarding. That's the thing. That's the big secret behind it, because you find talented kids and they come up with great ideas and they inspire you, you know, and it keeps you like motivated, keeps you on pace with what's going on in the community.
That's so well said. I guess final question. I know we mentioned earlier, you know, I think you've racked up 5 Grammys and many more nominations even. Any memories from you know, the first time you heard your name called, or are those ever in the broadcast? I know sometimes they give out a ton of awards, you know, before the show or whatever, but you know, any good memories or just meeting any idols while you were there? I mean, you know, even if you don't care about the acclaim.
Well, no, we had a lot of fun. Me and my wife went the first time. We had gone a number of times when I was nominated, but the first time that I actually won the award was giving up, you know, the pre-telecast. And I just remember, you know, well, actually, no, not even the first time. You know what? I'll tell you about another time. I made a recording with Jeff Watts, right? And man, when I got there, I was nominated for Best Instrumental Soloist. And when they announced my name, they also had to announce the title of the track that I played on. And it was just so funny because they said, and the winner is Terence Blanchard, Dancing for Chicken. That was the name of the song. And they hear that over the loudspeaker, man, was just hilarious. I'm like, only Jeff Watts would have me go up and receive an award for Dancing for Chicken.
You'll never forget that moment.
No, never, ever.
That's hilarious. Well, it's an esteemed career, and I'm glad you're finally starting to give you some Oscar nominations. I'm sure there'll be more to follow, but you know, between us, we all know it should have been from years ago. But hey, you know, it's starting to happen.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Cool. Well, everybody come check out Terence Blanchard, the legend himself, at the Frederick Jazz Festival here in my hometown of Frederick, Maryland, at the Weinberg Center on November 6th. Hey, thanks so much for doing this. This was a blast chatting with you.
Man, it was great fun for me, too.
All right, cool. Talk to you later.
Take care. All right, bro.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.